Canto 10, Chapter 85. King Bali said, obeisance to the unlimited Lord Ananta, the greatest of all beings, and obeisance to Lord Krishna, the creator of the universe, who appears as the impersonal absolute and the supersoul in order to disseminate the principles of Samkhya and Yoga. King Bali said, we'll say it again. King Bali said, obeisance to the unlimited Lord, Ananta, the greatest of all beings, and obeisance to Lord Krishna, the creator of the universe, who appears as the impersonal absolute and the supersoul in order to disseminate the principles of Samkhya and Yoga. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada's followers. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti identifies the Supreme Ananta, named here as Lord Balaram, from whom expands the divine serpent Ananta Shesh. Impersonal Brahman is the source of the texts belonging to the Samkhya philosophers, while the personal representation of the Lord, known as Paramatma, disseminates the textbooks of yoga. Okay. Namo Vishnu Krishna Vishtaya Bhutare Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamini Pramani Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Paracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Vaschatare Shatarini. So as we have been reading in the Krishna book, Krishna the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in the evenings, we've now sort of matched up to our verses here in this particular chapter, where we have met, started last night, and so it's kind of exciting. Krishna and Balaram made a point to do a service, a very special service, and that is to bring back to the Mother Devaki the 6 sons that she never had the pleasure of spending time with. They were prematurely reincarnated, you can say, and they never had the chance to be with their mother and father. So being very much in the motherly sentiment, Devaki has asked her 2 wonder boys, Krishna and Balaram, can you please bring your brothers over here so that I could have just a little time with them, if you could kindly do that. Krishna and Balaram consented, and they went to the place called Sutala, which is, as we discussed the other day, it's a region below the earth, and it's not necessarily a place of where it's hot, but it's a place where it's there's a lot of affluence, heavenly affluence. And yet there's very little scope for devotional practices. So Krishna and Balaram went there, and upon being at the entranceway, we have King Bali, or both Vamana, and Bali is met by them. Bali is a great devotee of the Lord. His mother's position was a little questionable, but from his father's side, there was something more honorable on the paternal side. But Bali had all the qualities of a great devotee. He's seen Krishna and Balaram. He was just thinking, oh, what an occasion. This is so good. I can remember there was some years back myself and Rupa Manohar and Ajamil. We would go to people's homes. We go all over from west to east, north, even to Hamilton, Niagara Falls. Well, our evening program was to visit our people and remind them of festivals and so on. Like that. I remember going to one household, more in the Markham area, and we did not tell this one particular family that we were coming. There was no pre-warning. But we went to the door, knocked on the door, rang the doorbell. And the people were so, oh, thank you, you've come. This is such a pleasant surprise. That's the mood. In the culture of India, if a sadhu comes to your home, or even sometimes we might consider a beggar, you must consider that this is Bhagavan who's come. And the greeting has to be really nice. Whether we, of course, we had a little problem with somebody yesterday. We don't want everybody, we don't have such a, let's say, an accommodating spirit for everybody. But in general, that's the way it was, and that's the way it should be. God has come. God has come. And in the story of Bilva Mangal Thakur, we have an example of this, a display of this hospitality, if you will. Bilva Mangal Thakur, he had fell prey to this prostitute. Her name's Chintamani, and he just had to see her. It was the night of his father's funeral, and being the oldest son, it was required for him to light the fire by the pyre, the fire by the pyre of where his father's body was laid. And he was a little bit squeamish about it. Didn't really want to do it. And he basically just, midway through the last rites, he just took off. Why did he take off? He took off because he had an appointment. What was his appointment? To see the social lady. It's a society woman by the name of Chintamani. And so Chintamani was not expecting him to show up because there was a heavy storm coming. And to get to her house, he had to cross the river. To cross the river was not always that easy. There wasn't always a boatman. So he endeavored through this big storm. Wind was going and moving. It was like quite the rush, and waves were being created. And he thought, I'll take a log. That'll get me across the river. And it was all dark. This is nighttime. And when he saw what the log was, it wasn't really a log, like a decayed log. It was a corpse. It was and then after he got on dry ground, relatively dry, because there was a storm, he had to scale a wall. But how could he scale the wall? It was the wall, first of all, it was the wall of Chintamani, his girlfriend. And it wasn't so easy to get over that wall. But there's a certain kind of snake that puts his power, his fangs into the side of the wall, into the stone, and he grips it so hard. So Bilva Mangal was able to get over, thinking it was a rope, and he got over the wall. Finally got into the house. Chintamani knocked on the door. She was very surprised that he would come in the night. And she felt sorry for him. Why? Because his senses were overpowering him. He couldn't control himself. He left his father, when there was a sense of duty required, and he left that to be with the prostitute. So she was quite surprised that he would go to such lengths to visit her during the storm. And then she started to say something. She thought, now it's time to spill the beans, so to speak, or I'm using a slang term. Now it's time to break the ice. I'll tell you some truth. So what was the tattva she was telling him? Bilva Mangal. You may not understand this, but in our former life, I was your guru, and you were my student. You were my shishya, and I taught you everything I could. but I saw that you still had some lingerings towards Maya. I decided to come back here and see to it that somehow this could maybe be your last life. So with those words, Bilvamangal sort of lost the appetite for sex. I mean, at that moment, at least that night. And he was shocked. So Chintamani said, you go to somebody by the name of Somagiri. He can help you further on. What I've told you now is that I shook you up, and I had to tell you something for your own good. Now go on to another guru by the Somagiri, and he'll give you the next step to take. So Bilvamangal did take some directions from an enlightened saint by that name, Somagiri. And yet he still had his desires. They were very strong. As the Bhagavad Gita explains to us, that even one of the senses can take you away from the truth and into illusion. And just one of the senses can grab you and pull you out of reality. And so, like a boat that's swept away by the wind and moves very speedily. One of the last times I visited Miami, we went to Biscayne Beach. And there you have these, I was on one of those boats, like, I don't know what you call it, one of those sailing devices. There were two guys, there were four of us. And we had to learn how to adjust the sails because the currents are coming in different ways. And you know, put your weight over here now. Okay, grab this, grab that. They were there to guide us. And fortunately, we didn't topple over. We just took their instructions. It was very nice. So by that experience, you get those paragliders. You see them sometimes. It was 3.5 months ago. Still still a little bit of winter, and there were all these people out there with their paragliders out there, all in the air like this, and enjoying the effect of the wind. So this is what happens to the senses. Bilvamangal then had considered that he's very sinful. His senses were getting the better of him. So after getting lessons from Somagiri, he saw a woman walking one day with her, a vase or like some pot on her head, which is quite common in any of these Matajis. They're trained to just walk with heavy pots on their heads and keep it all straight. You ever seen that? It's totally exotic, if not mystical. So he was taken by her. She was a beautiful woman. And then he decided to follow her. He was sitting meditating, decided to follow her, and sat down across the street from her home. And then he was just contemplating on her. And at the same time, he was thinking how fallen I am. My eyes are deceiving me. So at some point in time, the husband of this woman, beautiful woman, he noticed the sadhu, because he was dressed in simple cloth and everything. Said, because Bilvamangal came to his doorway, he said, "What is it that you would like?" The husband, he said, what can I do for you, sadhu? You are like God to us. I'll give you what you like. And Bilvamangal was very frank, said, I want your wife. Okay, so the guy was a little bit shocked, but okay. Maybe his inner thoughts were, maybe this is God come in disguise. And maybe this is God's way of helping us with children. There were a lot of thoughts going through his head, etc. So the homeowner said, okay, please come in. And then he left his wife, who was not so excited about this program, to a room with this stranger, basically. And Bilva Mangal had these thoughts, oh my God, I've come this far. This is just crazy. And he says to the woman, can you give me your hairpins? And so she wasn't understanding exactly what he was thinking about. And, maybe loosening her hair is step one of their act. And so she gave her the hairpins. And then he expressed loudly, my senses have done this to me. I've allowed them to carry me away into a hellish existence. So he took those hairpins and he jabbed his eyes with his eyeballs. It's kind of a gruesome thing. So from that act, of course it was very painful, he became blind. And from there on, he became somewhat purified. He was near Vrindavan. He traveled, a blind man with a stick, going to Vrindavan. He was trying to find Krishna. He wanted to be in the holy town, get purified. And he met a young boy, and that young boy ended up, because he couldn't see him, he ended up being Krishna. It's a beautiful story. It's a great play. And so I'm bringing up this story because of the segment where hospitality is such in the Vedic context that when somebody comes to your door, you treat them nice, you make them feel good. Prabhupada said the obligation of a grahastha, even if you don't let the person in. I'll give you something neat. There was one devotee became a grahastha during Prabhupada's time. Said, Prabhupada, now that I'm a grahastha, what should I know? What else should I understand by this? And Prabhupada was very simple in his answer. He said, to be a grahastha means that you go out in the night, you step outside your front door. You say, is there anybody who hasn't yet eaten? If you have not, I will supply you some food. Even serpents may be fed. So that was the idea. That was the generosity of a grahastha. You see everybody who comes to your door as, wow, this is amazing. I think I might have mentioned to you before, I think it was Welland, we were doing Sankirtan. It was wintertime, we were going door to door in apartments, and there was one sign on the door. Every third salesman that comes here gets shot. The second one just left. That's not very hospitable, right? Doesn't sound so nice, like, well, it's not bienvenue, welcome. not at all. So Bali is seeing Krishna and Balaram, and particularly he's addressing Balaram, Ananta Shesh, the one who has many hoods, the one who carries the weight of the universe. Actually, Balaram refers to one whose strength. Bala refers to strength. And he's able to do this. In Greek theology, they have Atlas, and he's strenuously holding up just the earth, right? But Balaram is, through his manifestation as Anantashesh, is holding up all, the whole cosmos with ease. With ease. So he is saying my obeisance to you. I offer my respects to you, my dear Lord Ananta, greatest of all beings. And obeisance to Krishna as well, the creator of the universe. Krishna's the creator, Balaram's the holder of the creation. That's how we can look at that. And so he's giving his heart. As we know, in our discussions yesterday, Har Kumar gave the class, that there was this generosity that was coming from Bali that is unparalleled or not matched practically by anyone. He was a very charitably disposed person. And that is one of the qualities of a Kshatriya. Chapter 18 from Bhagavad Gita, text 43. talks about the qualities of the Kshatriya. Now, I guess the Bhagavad Gita is not here, but some of the points that are raised there: courageous, generous, resourceful, heroic. Those are some of the qualities of what is a king. And Bali happens to be a king. And Vedic kings were quite pious. Yeah, I mean, it is possible, even in the US of A dynasty, or in their parampara, you had some not bad guys. I can think of, during the time that Prabhupada was with us, Jimmy Carter was in there. And people say, oh, we got a president, he's a peanut farmer. But even though he was a peanut farmer, he wasn't nuts. He was a real good man. You know? He was very pious. And since that time, he's read books on spirituality. He's written books on religiosity. So there was, you to get some good guys in those positions. If it's possible in Kali Yuga, surely it was there in the days of yore in the Vedic times. Okay, so looking at the purport, we find something interesting. As we find in the first canto of the Bhagavatam, God realization is found on three levels. Brahmeti, Paramatmeti, Bhagavan iti Shabdyate. So the first one is the impersonal manifestation of the Absolute is one way to gain realization. The second one is Paramatma, the localized aspect of God in the heart. And then thirdly, we have Bhagavan, or maybe firstly. Bhagavan means the personality of Godhead, whom you can personally reciprocate with. That is Bhagavan. Bhagavan, the word, means when it was all opulences. And Bhagavan appears throughout the Bhagavad Gita. Throughout. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha. It's not Krishna Uvacha. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha. Of course, we make no distinction between the two. It's just one of the endless nomenclatures or honorific titles of who we know as Krishna. Krishna is described here as the creator. I'm just looking to see what word we can capture. Vedase. Vedase. He's the creator. He is the source of all. So there are three ways to recognize God: impersonal Brahman. But Krishna says, I am the basis of that impersonal Brahman. Brahmanohi pratishtaham. That's the line that everybody here should learn. Brahmanohi pratishtaham. And that Krishna is saying that I'm the basis, I'm the source of Brahman. It's not the other way around. It's not that Brahman gives birth to Krishna or Paramatma. It's the other way around. This is how our acharyas have helped us to understand that particular verse. Samkhya Yoga is described. Samkhya is important to all of us. A segment of the Bhagavad Gita deals with Samkhya. Samkhya means to itemize. It means to list. What are the items that make up the universe? That's Samkhya. And the source of Samkhya is also described. That philosophy of recognizing 24 elements has a base. And that base again is Bhagavan, Vishnu. And that's how we analyze the world. We don't just look at the elements. We don't just look at chemicals. You have to look at the chemist behind the chemicals, isn't it? You have to not just look at the creation, but acknowledge the creator. Actually, it's quite easy to understand how people have come so far to just kind of like throw God out of the equation. After all, it's a throwaway culture, isn't it? It's a disposable culture. We make so much garbage. Americans and Canadians are the worst people for producing garbage. So much wrapping and so much, plastic and paper and whatnot, goes into as fillers. And because we're so accustomed to throwing everything away, let's do it with God too. I'm on a roll here. Everything's junk. I'll buy something new made in China. I'll just put it in the landfill and everything will be okay. And I'll keep buying more junk and keep making hills. One of the areas, like where I grew up near Blenheim, which is closer to Windsor, I went to visit after a few years and I said, well, where the hell did those hills come from? Our land was super flat. And we have one devotee, his name is Devata. He's a Toronto boy. He spent many years in New Vrindavan, and now he trains the ox. Very nice devotee. And he said, you're from Blenheim? I said, well, I work there all the time. So he's like a trucker and he brings dirt. So what is that? What are those hills in Blenheim that weren't there before? They're landfills, probably from the city of Toronto. And I didn't think that was maybe the town's hard up. I remember they were trying to sell garbage to Detroit, to Michigan. And Michigan people were saying, no, we don't want your garbage. Then they went to Kirkland Lake. There was like an empty, they mined silver there, Kirkland Lake, I think so. And there was a big pit. And the townsfolk had an opportunity to get rich, to get lots of money from the city of Toronto. The city of Toronto was proposing, we'll dump our garbage there, we'll give you so much money. And, the people from Kirkland Lake just went, no, forget it. We don't want that. Garbage. And when you think that God is garbage, wow. If that is the bulk of your culture, consider that you're doomed. Consider that you're following the footsteps of Rome. So anyways, Samkhya philosophy is to be studied. It is a component of the Bhagavad Gita, and from it we understand that Vishnu or Krishna is the source. So Samkhya is mentioned, and then yoga is also mentioned. Yoga brings us to the point of bringing about Paramatma realization, accepting God in the heart. I was talking to a fellow on Bloor Street the other day. I was telling him our philosophy tells us that divinity is found in everything. There's something sacred everywhere in everything. And he said, is this called pantheism? Is this pantheistic philosophy? I said, it's not exactly that. There's more to it. Then I started to explain about Bhagavan and the purpose of Bhagavan. So he could appreciate there were levels, different levels. Like probably one of the best cakes that you can get is one that has layers, right? Everybody here likes cake. No? You don't like cake? Are you a cake lover? Take it or leave it, right? You're not a cake lover? What kind of people are hard to mark? Yeah. Yes. How about you? Yeah, so you get layers of cake, you get different colors, different flavors. It's so much nice. It's so much more rich when you have that, at least to look at. So this is the way it is with God. Everything's rich. So when Bali is seeing Krishna and Balaram, he's actually appreciating that the richness of God. 2 in 1. 2 in 1. So I think sometimes if I joined the movement, after Prabhupada passed away, who would I accept as a guru? I said, I'll take him and I'll take her. I'll take that couple, because I get 2 for the price of 1. We do have some good, outstanding couples in our movement that are very Brahminical, very clean, and very pure. So anyways, that's my preference. I'd like to have 2. So we have 2 in 1, we have 3 in 1, 4 in 1. I don't know if I need to explain it. We went through that the other day, not so long ago. 3 in 1. There's the different Vishnu manifestations, right? That's 3 in 1. 2 in 1 is Radha and Krishna. In this case, it's Krishna and Balaram. And there's 4 in 1, 5 in 1. You know, we can get into such detail. But God is very deep. God is very rich. And when I say rich, I mean rich in qualities. Rich in qualities. So we can appreciate the hospitality of King Bali, and that should be demonstrated by us, by our devotees, to other people who come around. I know sometimes it's really hard on the phone. I have an incredible weakness for when people ask something. I said, when is it at the yatra? I said, it is such and such a day. Okay. So it is on what day is it? You tell them again. And then after that, okay, so it's on the date July such and such. Yes, it is. So 3 times in a week. And then, and where will it start? And you tell them, you have to tell them, 2nd time, 3rd time, you know, you're just going a little. Have you ever had those phone calls? Oh. And I wouldn't be a good telephone receptionist. Whoever can do a good job, I will just kiss their lotus feet. But anyways, it's like, you know, we have to be willing to answer the phone. And once we do, you know, make everyone feel welcome, even though we're not welcoming anybody. Make them, prep them. Get them ready for that glorious day when they can again come to see Shri Radhakirtan Govinda. So we learned from Bali, as was pointed out yesterday, that there's 12 great Mahajans, and Bali happens to be one. But Balir Vayasakira Vaya, that's the last line from the Srimad Bhagavatam that outlines the 12 great Mahajans. So when you look at his life, he was good. He was a good man. Yeah. Okay. So I think those are some points to cover, and we were just wondering if I'm going to take a little drink right now. I was wondering if we could hear from you, Prabhus, some of your comments and your questions, and see what brilliance comes from you.